Financial markets have been trying to puzzle out the rhetoric in Jerome Powell's speech today. Optimism on Wall Street dimmed amid risk aversion. InstaForex analysts are ready to provide you with a clue to market developments. This week, the benchmark indexes have lost almost all of January's gains. They closed mixed on a Monday. Fed's policymakers wrecked optimism gained by stock investors in light of the news on reopening Chinese borders. Thus, the Dow Jones closed 0.34% down. The Nasdaq was able to take a punch and even gained ground. The index rose 0.63% intraday, and the S&P 500 closed almost flat. It inched down 0.08% to close at 3,892 points. Futures on the major stock indexes traded in the red in the New York pre-market. The indexes are ready to grow or fall anytime soon. A speech by Jerome Powell serves as a market catalyst today. The Fed chairman will make comments during the New York session, and he can trigger any momentum in the market. Dovish notes could fuel a rapid rally, whereas the hawkish stance will activate mild market moves because investors are anticipating inflation data on Thursday. The S&P 500 is expected to trade in the corridor between 3,810 and 3,940 points. Yesterday, two hawkish Fed policymakers dampened the risk-on mood. Mary Daly and Raphael Bostic said that they foresee the funds rate at levels higher than 5% for the long term. They both mentioned some conditions for keeping interest rates at such elevated levels. Still, it was enough to shake fragile optimism on Wall Street. The benchmark indexes lost previous gains and closed mixed. At the same time, the S&P 500 grew amid falling yields of U.S. Treasuries. Broadcom shares dropped by 2% in the late New York trade after Bloomberg reported that Apple planned to give up Broadcom's chips in 2025. Tesla shares jumped by 5.9% because the company said that a delivery time for some Model Y versions could be extended in China. Today, the stocks of high-tech giants traded lower in the New York pre-market. Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft and Meta stocks shed 0.3 and 0.11%. Alibaba shares rose by 2.7% in light of the news that the company would enter a cooperation with the government. Obviously, the market sentiment today depends entirely on the Fed's chairman, Jerome Powell. The market came to a standstill after remarks by Mary Daly and Raphael Bostic. Today, Jerome Powell may revive the market boost. Jerome Powell is taking part in the conference on the central bank's independence alongside governors of the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. Traders are trying to foresee the Fed's further policy moves, and nowadays the market expects the federal funds rate to reach the peak at 5% by the middle of the year. However, the latest comments by Fed's policymakers raised doubts. The Fed is focused on its crusade against inflation, which is still far away from the official target. Last week, analysts discovered promising signs of easing inflation in Europe. The picture was less rosy in Japan, so the Bank of Japan might dare to kickstart the cycle of monetary tightening this year. The US CPI, which is due on Thursday, is expected to slow down to 6.5% in December on a year from 7.1% in November. The data could be the crucial factor for the US Fed to decide on the size of the rate hike in February. Though the actual CPI is still unknown, Powell may consider the US non-farm payrolls and wages for December. All in all, the sentiment for risk may change depending on Powell's rhetoric. The US dollar had a lucky day on Tuesday as expected. Its index regained its luster and rebounded by 0.5% to 103.40 ahead of Powell's speech. Nevertheless, it's too early to speak about the greenback bonds. It will turn the direction depending on Powell's rhetoric. The intraday corridor for the index is seen between 102.60 and 103.90. On Tuesday, the US dollar index consolidated at about 103.40 after it had printed a 7-day low at 102.90 yesterday. The US dollar is weakening because the market doubts that the Fed will decide to raise interest rates above 5% to tame inflation. At the same time, some Fed officials advocate for aggressive monetary tightening and keeping rates at elevated levels, so the fresh inflation data will be a clue to the Fed's agenda for the nearest policy meeting. The Fed has been pursuing the cycle of rate hikes for almost a year, aiming to bring down rampant inflation. Fed policymakers welcome a slightly softer employment and wage growth in December, and this might signal a slowdown in inflation. The US Central Bank is unwilling to halt rate hikes too early or shift to a slower pace of rate hikes. While Wall Street is enjoying demand for risky assets, the Canadian dollar is giving in to the stronger US dollar. Having climbed 0.2% intraday, the USD CAD pair is now trading at 1.3410 within the corridor between 1.3380 and 1.3470. The greenback's recovery and stabilization of oil prices put the loonie under pressure. Brent futures rose by 0.25% to trade at $79.84 a barrel, and WTI appreciated by 0.6% to trade at $75.11. The commodity market is also alert to Powell's speech. Indeed, the soft US dollar will boost demand for oil because the commodities denominated in dollars will get cheaper for holders to other currencies. Besides, bullish momentum in the oil market is sustained by the prospects of a high energy demand in China. As for the Canadian economy and further monetary policy, Chief McClellan will also speak today that will give fresh impetus to the Canadian dollar. Bitcoin is clinging to the conquered high of 17,200 for the whole day. The token rose by 0.2% intraday, and altcoins are trading mixed today. Cryptocurrencies are licking wounds inflicted in 2022. They are doing all right. The total value of the global crypto market has fallen by 5% to $871 billion since January 1, but it has been 57% down since early January 2022. Bitcoin has advanced by 4.3% since the beginning of 2023, though it has got stuck in the range between $16,500 and $17,300, and today the token might develop momentum in any direction. The intraday corridor is defined between 16,980 and 17,340 points. Remember that the market might give an emotional response to the event. Trade prudently with the InstaForex and see you tomorrow.